Back speaking with Elixir Energy's Neil Young this afternoon. Neil, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Andrew. Always a pleasure.
Look, tell us more, Neil, about this MoU you've announced this morning, agreed here with the Australian Gas Infrastructure Development Group.
Okay, so an MoU is clearly non-binding in nature, but it is been struck with a very, very large party, which is a sign of confidence on their part as well as ours, that the Taroom Trough's momentum is building from its current exploration appraisal stage, where we and our neighbours are pretty active, and through to the parties contemplating the next stage, which is development. Now, development needs gathering systems, pipelines, compression, and those sorts of things. And that's where a company like AGIG comes in. And so here we've now got a framework for pursuing investigatory works with them, for instance, on pipeline routes, and also a framework for potentially engaging with people like the government. And in Queensland, the government is likely to change soon, and that'll be a handy new stepping point to go to them with a very big brother side by side.
I'd imagine having this infrastructure in place, this would be of use and of interest to the likes of, say, Shell, who are also active in the area.
Exactly, and that's where we want to loop in other parties here. What we've seen in Queensland when the LNG plants were all built, or what we've seen in the Perth Basin just now, where various development options, is that it's better for everybody if they coordinate rather than compete. Now, human nature can act against that, and that's where governments can come in and try and encourage rational behaviour that saves costs. So we thought it useful to try and get in early, as I said, with a party of the very high quality as AGIG, to have a framework whereby we can start to move things conceptually forward and then hopefully bring along a rising tide of the likes of Shell, not necessarily with us because they'll go at their own pace, but just create that momentum.
So how might this MoU develop into a binding deal?
Well, I think that a binding deal requires a commitment to capex probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars here, potentially more in the long run. So as always, we see that our job is to do what we're doing, get in early and appraise, but the much larger parties like Shell and or its peers come in and develop. So we want to create options for those parties. We don't have the delusions that we'll be spending that sort of money ourselves. But the more work that we can do building up to that, the more value to the overall play, and hence the more value to us and our shareholders if we're successful in that strategy.
And as you say, this clearly is a vote of confidence in the region's prospectivity.
Exactly. AGIG is not a listed company in Australia. It's actually owned by one of Hong Kong's largest companies, CKI Infrastructure, that owns an enormous amount of energy and other infrastructure plays around the world, including in Australia. So these guys can deploy a lot of money. They've got growth aspirations. Their biggest assets in Australia just now are in WA. But clearly by signing this, they're indicating that they want to expand in Eastern Australia as well. And in our humble view, we're better than the Taroom Trough to do so.
And so, Neil, what are the next steps for your project, Grandis?
Okay, so as we've flagged to the market recently, we are now seeking long-term tenure over these licenses through procuring a retention lease. We are engaging with those potential partners that I've described. We are planning our next well, Daydream 3, and again, we're creating options there for these guys rather than prescribing what that might be. We're looking at some other things which might not come to fruition, but which would be highly value adding, and obviously we'll report on those as and when they happen. So certainly our shareholders and those interested in our stock can rest assured that we are like the proverbial swan in a lake here. It's all placid on the surface, as you see, but we're paddling away pretty hard underneath.
Great to catch up, Neil. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, and likewise.